Thank you for joining us today.
No,
It's a little different than usual. You usually be talking about the Premier League teams and the big clubs, but now you're going to give an outlook on semi-pro, which is good actually. It's good to talk about these lower leagues and the clubs and just get a bit more information about them, especially in the Midlands.
yeah, okay.
So, firstly, I'd like to ask, how long have you been a fan of non-league football for?
Properly, I guess about 15 years. I did the old thing where you pick a team and you follow them through the early rounds of the FA Cup and see how far you can go with it. And I did that for one particular season from the extra preliminary round. And in those days, there weren't many sides in the extra preliminary round, or not that many ties to choose from, and certainly nothing local in the West Midlands. So I ended up picking a team called Brigg Town, who are based in Lincolnshire. And I ended up going to watch their first game in the extra preliminary round, which is like 100 miles away from here. And then they kept winning, and I kept going to their games. And eventually we ended up at Boston for the fourth qualifying round. And then they won that and got through to the first round proper and drew Tranmere away at Prenton Park. And like the whole of the town came out to support them. It was really weird. So I think I just felt lucky that particular first year. But that really got my appetite for non-league football because I was a Wolves supporter. And I just, the interest was draining a bit. And at the time, radio station was starting around here, which is now Black Country Radio, but was then 102.5 The Bridge. And it sort of married my two loves of broadcasting and also football as well. So it gave me the opportunity initially just to go and watch Stourbridge games and to report on them on a Saturday afternoon and a Tuesday evening. And it sort of snowballed from that now to a point where we cover lots of West Midlands sides week in, week out, and get lots of reports. So it's sort of what started off as a bit of fun ended up a bit more serious in the end.
Oh, sounds really good. Sounds really interesting as well. Just keep on that topic. Is there any particular teams in the non-league that you follow, like locally? Any favourites?
Our main two that we cover, because of the geographical area we cover, is Stourbridge and Halesowen Town. Both Stourbridge is a Step 3 side from the Southern Central Premier Division, and Halesowen Town is a Step 4 side from Division 1 Central. But we also cover other teams in the area, so that could include Tividale, Dudley Sports, Dudley Town, Cradley, and other sides within the West Midlands Regional League as well. So we don't, although most of our coverage is based around Stourbridge and Halesowen Town, because quite frankly they're the best of the sides in the area. We don't like to forget the other teams because they deserve fans as well. We try and promote them as best as we can.
Oh, good stuff. Sounds really good. So in terms of these clubs being formed in the non-league, is there like a specific way how it's done and how the clubs are run?
So the clubs are run the same as, albeit on a smaller basis, as every other club in every other division. You've obviously got different tiers of teams. So you start off with the Premier League, and then you work down the tiers. You've got the Championship, League 1, League 2, and then you've got the National League, and then National League North and South. And then you've got Step 3, which is in this case, the Southern Central Premier Division. Step 4, which is the Southern Central Division 1. And Step 5, the Midland Football League. And Step 6, the West Midlands Regional League. Now, there are steps even further down, but to be honest, you've got to draw the line somewhere, otherwise you'd be covering all and sundry.
That's it. So in terms of like the football style, it's not as flashy, it's not as in your face as professional football. What is the attraction with non-league football, with fans? What is the actual attraction there?
I think the thing is that it's a very, very friendly environment, very family orientated. Okay. So, say for example, you could go to the Wolves and yeah, you'll watch great players, but you'll pay an awful lot of money to do it. Whereas you can go to somewhere like Stourbridge or Halesowen Town and pay tenner or however much it costs and watch entertaining football and it is entertaining football. You know, I wouldn't recommend it if I thought it was boring. But the nice thing is that the management and the players are all accessible. So you can go and have a drink with them in the bar afterwards. I mean, could you imagine doing that at the end of a Premier League game? It just wouldn't happen. So it's they appreciate your support more than like a Premier League club. It's just money to the Premier League sides, whereas to local sides, who, particularly in COVID, they're trying to stay alive and trying to keep their businesses still going. You know, they want every supporter possible through the turnstiles because it gives them a bit of money and helps them stay afloat. So, you know, we try and do everything we can to sort of recommend that people, you know, pay a tenner. Yeah, you're not seeing top quality players, but you're watching some good football without having to pay a lot of money out. You can have a drink in the ground, socially distanced, of course, now, and have a chat with the players and the managers. You know, you just wouldn't get that in league football.
So in terms of like revenue now and how they're run, the clubs, how do they keep themselves afloat? Is it through sponsorships and stuff?
Some of it's through sponsorship. Some of it is through owners and benefactors who've perhaps got money to throw into it. But the majority of it will be the paying customer. You know, when they pay to go through the turnstiles to go and watch a game in the first place, or if they then go in the bar and spend some money, or go to the, I don't know if there's a cafeteria or a cafe on site, or a burger van, or, you know, that kind of thing. It's all money at the end of the day, which is being generated by the club. So there's lots of ways. I mean, I say it's £10 to get in. You can probably end up spending the same again on drinks and food, you know, and particularly if you've got a family and you take those along. But then, if you imagine if you did that at Premier League side, how much that would cost you, because you'd be paying probably twice as much for your drink and your food. So it's most of the money, as I say, would be made through, you know, people clicking through those gates and paying the money and going through the turnstiles.
Thank you. And with the current situation with the COVID, we've seen with the bigger leagues how it's affected them with not having fans in attendance. Has this affected non-league clubs at all in any way?
Yeah, so much so that certain leagues haven't even started yet and may not start as we speak. We're still waiting for the results of the National League, which is like step 1 and step 2 of the non-league pyramid. They're supposed to start on the 3rd of October, but some clubs have said, well, I'm sorry, we're not going to start if we can't have any supporters there, because we just can't afford to justify playing the games. So it'll be interesting to see whether that actually starts or whether, you know, that season is lost completely. Time will tell. With step 3 and lower, it's slightly different in that there's been government guidelines to allow a maximum number of fans into a ground. So at the moment, say for example, we did a game between Hensford and Stourbridge at the weekend, and the maximum crowd allowed at Keys Park was 600. So no game at that particular level can allow more than 600 supporters into the ground, and even then they must be socially distanced.
Well, it's good to know. Sounds like it's hitting them hard as well, to be fair, and we just hope that this can all be resolved. And
I think a lot of clubs are going to go under, to be honest. I think it was bad enough when the season ended back in March, and the FA sort of shot themselves in the foot to a certain extent, because they made the decision that what had happened between August and March last year was sort of going to be forgotten about. So no promotion, no relegation. It was almost like, oh, don't bother, you haven't played the games in the first place. And you sort of think, well, what a waste of time that was. You know, surely you could have done something on an average of points per game or something like that. But the FA said, no, the whole season's going to be wiped out as if it didn't happen. Now, the thing is, the season is just getting underway again, albeit a bit late. But there's still no agreement as to what's going to happen if this particular season isn't going to finish. So it could be that, you know, we could end up in the same situation all over again. Now, you know, where's the interest in both the clubs and the fans going, playing and going to watch matches that might end up being meaningless at the end of the day? So, you know, the FA really have got to get themselves sorted and decide exactly what they want to do. So the other thing, of course, is if there's another lockdown, that's no money going into the coffers of the football clubs. So, even the owners have only got a limited amount of money. At some point, they can pull the plug and close the clubs down as well. And some of these clubs have been going for many, many years. So I worry about the future of non-league football, and particularly certain clubs who potentially might go out of business during the next 6 months.
That's it. It is a shame as well. And a lot of these clubs do have the facilities of like a stadium kind of set up where they got the stands, and I suppose paying the rent on those as well in this kind of situation is really hard in maintaining that. So they could lose out on their grounds, but they couldn't play in that as well.
But also there's the running costs, there's the electricity and heating, and there's bills to pay, like I don't know, rates and that kind of stuff. I know the government try and help out a little bit in that respect. But also you got to remember a lot of these players are on contracts and they're being paid from week to week, even though there's no football going on. So, can the clubs afford to keep paying the players and yet not being able to play the games and generate the income necessary to pay for everything? It's a very difficult situation, and one which I think is going to see lots of clubs run out of money and potentially fold.
It's such a shame. So in terms of the players now in the league, do they have aspirations, or do they have any chances of ever going professional based on?
Oh yeah, there are lots of players that will go and try and turn professional, and some have been very successful at it as well. A player that used to play for Hounslow in Town, Curtis Tilt, has made his name in the league proper. I think someone will probably correct me on this. I think he's a Blackpool at the moment, but it is possible to make that step up if you're good enough. It is a giant leap, but it is possible to make that step up to league level. And at the end of the day, how most players start. They start at non-league level and they get scouted by league clubs, and then they will go and make their money where they can in the Football League, and perhaps one day in the Premier League as well. So, everyone's got to start somewhere.
Definitely. So are the leagues set up similar to how professionally set up, like they're training 5 times a week? It's like a full-time job, they get paid for it? Or is it like they train less days and they have a job, or they're studying on the side while they're playing?
Yeah, the majority of people will be working or studying. The few clubs at Step 1, the National League, are professional size, but they are very few and far between. Most clubs are either semi-professional or sort of amateur status where the players have to go to work perhaps on a Tuesday and then go and play a game on the Tuesday night. So, it's not difficult, particularly if they've got a long way to travel to an away game on a Tuesday night. So, yeah, most of the teams, certainly Step 3 and below, are amateur, and the players have to rely on their income from other sources. There will be an element of a playing fee, but I mean, we're only talking small fry compared to what they could earn sort of doing their own personal paid work.
Good stuff. Hopefully. So it does sound like there can be opportunities there if you're good enough and doors open. Do the players have agents at all, or is it all through themselves they represent?
At this level, it's normally down to the individuals themselves.
Okay.
When you move up to the next level, then their agents become involved, and normally then it's the agents who are trying to get as much money as they can for the player that they're looking after. At non-league level, though, it tends to be the player themselves that makes that decision. They may be headhunted by other managers and other coaches, and you'll always find scouts from other non-league clubs watching certain players, the ones that they're interested in, trying to perhaps lure them away from the club that they are. I suppose that any player is buyable if the price is right. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Well, does it happen? It happens quite a lot. A lot of loyalty comes into it, to be honest. If the player is genuinely wants to feel part of that club, then they will normally stay because there's not an awful lot of money to be made by not staying. and it's good to be around people that you know and play with week in, week out. But as I said before, opportunities will arise. So that's the opportunity then all the time to perhaps cash in and take what you can out of it.
Good stuff. So in terms of scouts from big Midlands clubs like West Brom, Birmingham, Aston Villa, how often would you say that they would attend a game? Or would it be specifically if they've heard of a player that they would attend that match to watch the boys?
I think that they might sort of go occasionally. I don't quote me on how much. Normally, the big clubs like Wolves and Villa and West Brom have got a number of scouts who'll spread themselves far and wide to try and see as many games as they can and to report back on what they've seen. And often, you only have to sort of pick up, say, the non-league paper, which comes out on a Sunday, and you read some of the reports in there, and you've got an idea of who's playing well and who's not playing well just from the reports in there. So it's not always necessary for the scout to have to sort of attend the game. But if they are serious in trying to sign a particular player, then obviously, yes, they'll want to sort of have a look and see what they like before they put their money where their mouth is. But it's. I mean, we're not talking mega bucks at this level.
Good. So if you had to give advice to a non-league player who had aspirations of turning professional, what would that be?
Well, I'm the wrong person to be asking, really. I'm a reporter, not a footballer. I've got 3 left feet when it comes to playing football. I think what most would say is be loyal and and have perseverance. You're not going to make it to the top very quickly, but you will make it and be noticed if you're part of a winning team and have a good team mentality and team ethic. And don't be too greedy. Don't expect too much too soon. Work towards what you're trying to achieve, and eventually, if you play well and your team plays well, you'll get noticed and you'll get the rewards.
Oh, good stuff. It's good to know that that's there for them, that there is that chance there, that hope that they could one day probably achieve their dreams of turning professional.
Yeah, there are players, as I say, who have done it, and you sort of think, well, does anybody really make it through from this level? They do, I can assure you.
Oh, perfect. Once again, thank you for your time today, and we'll definitely catch up with you again soon.
Nice to see you.
Good insight. So thank you and take care.
Thank you.